Okay, now we're talking about protecting business equipment from lawsuits. There's a number of things we need to do. First, we need to protect your business from being sued and losing everything that it has. We need to protect you personally from being sued and losing everything that you have. We need to protect your equipment if you're sued personally. For example, if you're driving home from the restaurant on Friday night and you rear end somebody in their car, you want to protect yourself from losing your business and losing all of your equipment and everything you work so hard for. And so we want to have the liability protection if your business is sued so it doesn't jump over to your personal life. And if you are personally sued in a personal lawsuit, we want to protect your business from being taken away from you. So how do you do that? Well, we do that with certain legal tools. We strip the equity out of the equipment with certain liens. We own the equipment in certain legal tools such as trusts and LLCs. Then we separate. So you're not like shooting geese in a pond with one company with a whole bunch of equipment and all of your employees and all this value and all this liability all swirling around in the same pool. It's a recipe for disaster. So we need to separate your business on one side and your equipment in a totally separate company. This main company leases the equipment from company two. So we're going to take a look at some illustrations we'll put together specifically on how to do that. Okay, the first tool we're going to talk about is a title holding trust. The trustee holds the title of the property, and the trustee could be a company that you own privately, could be a trusted friend or relative. The trustee holds title of the property in the trust itself, must follow the instructions of the trust. The beneficiary controls the trustee in this particular type of trust, and the ownership remains private. So the fact that the piece of property or whether it's real estate or equipment is in the trust, but the trust itself is not publicly recorded. So what happens is the title to the property, whether it's real estate or equipment, is recorded, but who owns the trust is not, because the trust document itself is kept in your file cabinet at home or in your office. Now, because the beneficiary of this type of trust has legal liability, what we do is we have the beneficiary as a limited liability company to shield the beneficiary of the trust. Okay? Limited liability company. Now, the limited liability company has the benefits of a limited partnership and the benefits of a corporation. So it's one of the strongest forms of asset protection in the U.S., and here's why. One, when the business is sued. If you have a brick wall, on one side of the brick wall is your business, the other side of the brick wall is your personal life. When the business is sued, the members or owners are protected from personal lawsuits. There's provisions in the law to protect the owners from being sued with an LLC. When the members are sued, on the other hand, there are laws to protect the assets held inside the LLC. So if the lawsuit happens on the other side of the brick wall, that's in your personal life, driving home from a restaurant, rear-ending somebody, and getting sued for far beyond the limits of your automobile insurance policy, and you're sued personally, the LLC and the assets inside can be protected from being taken away from you. Unlike a corporation, in all states but Nevada, when you're sued personally, the corporation shares can be taken away from you. So a corporation is a lawsuit protection device if your business is sued on one side of the brick wall, but it's not an asset protection device if the lawsuit happens on the other side of the brick wall, and that's in your personal life. On the other hand, an LLC is an asset protection device if you're sued personally. So it works both ways instead of just one way. So what do you do if you get confronted with Dewey, Stick'em, and Howe, and they're coming after you, you're in a lawsuit? How do you protect yourself? What do you specifically do? Okay, here's an example of what we do for clients. I've been doing this for 26 years. We're the largest asset protection company in the country, to my knowledge. Here's what we do. Number one, each piece of business equipment, whatever that is owned in a separate title holding trust. So that keeps your ownership of that equipment private. People can't look in the public records and find out who owns it, who's on the title to it. So you have privacy of ownership, okay? And then because the beneficiary of that trust is liable, each title holding trust is owned by an LLC. A limited liability company is the beneficiary of that trust. So what does this provide? Well, when the business is sued, let's say that crane smashes a building or hurts or injures or even worse another human being, the liability is maintained within that one cubbyhole, the LLC that owns that trust. The employer of the employee who is driving the equipment, if that's your company, since your company does not own the crane, because owned in this instance a crane or other pieces of equipment, there is very little to nothing to take from your main company that's doing business and the person that is that employs this worker who made the mistake. Okay? So, number 3, to protect the equipment itself, we record a lien against each piece of property. So you have another LLC that records a equivalent to a mortgage. It's done with the UCC-1 form on equipment. It's done with the mortgage or deed of trust on real estate. And you strip the equity out of that equipment. Okay? Now, what do you do? So each piece of equipment is owned in a separate title holding trust for privacy of ownership. They don't even know it's owned by you or the LLC. And then an LLC is the beneficiary of each one of the trusts. So you have lawsuit protection and asset protection. You're sued personally. There are provisions in the law from someone taking the LLC or anything inside of it away from you. So if you're sued personally, you're protected. Your business is sued, you're protected. The LLC protects you. And the fact that your equipment is owned by another company of yours, the liability incurred through the employee to the owner or the employer is curtailed because that main company doesn't own the assets. Okay? So here's your company. In this case, we call it ABC Crane Inc. You do the thing you need to do for asset protection. Own nothing, control everything. Your main company leases from one central leasing company that handles all the leases on all your equipment. So we're keeping it simple. So the setting up is a one-time thing on these particular tools, and you just write one payment to your main leasing company. This is another company that you own, by the way. And so that's just one check from here to lease all of your equipment. So your main company doesn't own anything, own nothing, control everything, and it simply makes lease payment to this one central leasing company that owns all of these LLCs, that owns all of your equipment. Again, this is a U.S.-based trust called a title holding trust. This is a U.S.-based LLC, as are all these, and they're all owned by one LLC that handles all of your leasing. Okay? So we own nothing, control everything. Okay? How do you do this with real estate? Well, it's the same concept. Each piece of real estate is in a separate land trust in this case, similar to a title holding trust, very similar. And each trust is owned by, or the beneficiary of the trust is an LLC. So you have the privacy of ownership through the trust. You have the lawsuit protection if there's a liability in this particular cubbyhole. It's separated from this cubbyhole and this one, so you don't have one big bunch of liability all swirling around in the same pot. It's all contained in one container. Okay? And so, and then when you're sued personally, the LLC protects you from losing your LLC or anything inside of it. And your lien holder strips all the equity by recording mortgages against all the properties. Okay? In your personal residence, by the way, we don't involve an LLC because that will affect the tax benefits of home ownership. It's only owned in a trust. So some contingent fee attorney does an asset search on you, and it looks like you own nothing because there's nothing in your name personally. Okay? And if they do proceed with a lawsuit, you have these protective measures in place. Okay? So here is how it's simple. Again, you have one active company, one for leasing all of your equipment to your main company, and one that records the mortgages against all the properties for, quote, lending. So what is recorded against the properties or the equipment is simply a line of credit. So if you need to pull the trigger and distribute that in cash by having another entity internationally that we have that will actually acquire these liens and turn them into cash on a deposit statement to show that you have distributed the loans from the lines of credit, you can show that this is a real legitimate loan, and then at that point it will be transferred to the third-party company, and that will put the funds in a trust. Now we're talking about protecting cash now. We protect cash using an international trust. We're not here to go into detail about international trust, so I'll just talk about it briefly. International trust says when you put money into an international trust, the Cook Islands south of Hawaii is the number one place for that. What works how this works is when the U.S. judge says, give me the money, the trustee offshore, who is not under that judge's jurisdiction, says, no, not going to. Okay? So why do we use an international trust? Simply, it works. And we have videos specifically talking about this particular trust and how it works and to get you comfortable with it. So what do? What's your emergency plan? Well, when the bad thing happens and the lawsuit does come flying at you, remember, your main company owns nothing because it leases the equipment. You put your cash into the international trust so that an international trustee can refuse to comply with orders to bring the funds back. You can't get in trouble in this in the scenarios we're talking about and what we've seen over the long term, because the trustee is the one refusing to comply, not you. You're fully compliant. The liens are transferred offshore, so those mortgages or liens that we recorded against equipment or real estate now are acquired by an international company who deposits the cash into a you can't touch it account in an offshore trust. That way we've stripped the equity out of your equipment and out of your real estate. Okay? So that's how to protect business equipment from lawsuits. So we just talked about how to protect business equipment from lawsuits, how to protect real estate from lawsuits, and some different techniques that can be used. Keep in mind, I have to legally say this is not to be considered legal or tax advice. For those things, check with an attorney or an accountant. And so this is a general overview on examples of how to protect assets from lawsuits. An asset protection plan is tailored to the individual. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution. So if you have questions or if you want more information, give us a call at the number that's on the screen, and we're very glad to help you. And I thank you for watching.